I don't know where Mark.
Hey, Gary. Hi, how are you? Good.
Hey, well, welcome to the housing production.
We're having a little meeting.
You guys,
There's only two of
Right.
them. So,
sit down, Gary. We don't have a quorum tonight for the housing production plan public forum. It's a very busy time of year. But there are other members who, one of whom's in the other room, and a couple other things will watch the video. This meeting is being recorded. So the purpose of this meeting is to hear from Karen Sonneborg, who is our consultant, has put together a vast amount of information about our housing stock and our demographics. And then we're going to talk about strategies to meet the state's requirements, many of which we have had looked at 5 years ago. Many of which we've actually done, and a number of things we have done that, like MBTA zoning and ADUs, will be reflected in the plan. But the purpose tonight is to really provide an introduction. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Karen and let her take it away. Do you want me to tell me when you want me to share the?
You can put it on right now. I mean, just do a brief introduction. So we worked on plans in 2015 and 2020. These plans have a 5-year term. So we're now updating those plans and really documenting current housing characteristics and trends, demographic trends, economic trends, to distill that information into kind of targeted housing needs. I'm going to be going through just some of the key pieces of that first section that we just drafted. And then we're going to, a good part of this is to listen to you. We'll be hopefully, asking you questions and getting some input into the next sections of the plan, which include goals and, very importantly, the actions that will be key to the town's housing agenda in the next few years. So I'm going to try to go through this expeditiously. In the first,
So the screen, just to show the audience, the screens are.
I'm going to turn around.
The slides are behind you. So
They just
that
turn
awkward
chairs.
problem of this.
So their first slide, a second slide, right? So this is basically kind of affordable housing 101. It's often basically described as affordable housing if households spending no more than 30% of their income on housing costs, whether it be for rental or home ownership. That's kind of the typical traditional threshold. If you're spending more than that, you're considered to have cost burdens. If you're spending more than half your income on housing costs, you're considered to have severe cost burdens. The definition we usually talk about, particularly for this housing plan, relates to Chapter 40B, that for a unit to be counted as part of housing production goals, annual housing production goals, or towards that 10% state goal of affordability as part of the subsidized housing inventory, it has to meet a number of requirements. It has to be deed restricted, and we're talking about in perpetuity, unless you can justify it with a shorter term, and that's to be approved by the state. Talking about affirmatively marketed and subsidized either directly with some public funding or approved through a subsidizing agency at the state level. And importantly, it has to be available to households earning at or below 80% of area median income. And that area is the greater Boston, but has some towns in New Hampshire, goes all the way down to the coastal area, goes all the way up to Framingham. It's a huge area. And the 2026 limits, I had adjusted these limits every year and according to household size and area. The recent ones for household of three, the limit is $123,400, which is fairly high level. It went up, significantly from 2025.
That's the AMI or the.
Area median income, that's the HUD area median income. For Boston, Quincy, Cambridge.
And that's
New
for
Hampshire.
family fruits.
Yes, it adjusted by household size. So they have limits for 1, 2, 3 members. I've used 3 because that's kind of the average household size for Manchester, just for your information. So next slide is, so what housing is affordable in Manchester? So based on the 2020 census results, the count was 2,293 year-round units, and of those, 115, or just a little over 5%, qualify based on those requirements for inclusion in the subsidized housing inventory. There's still a gap in order to get to that 10% target, but the town's halfway there. Almost all the SHI units are rentals. And the most involved units from the Manchester Housing Authority. As you probably are aware, there are a couple of pending projects out there that would bring the town's SHI to over 10%. However, given all the documentation we have in this housing plan, there'll still be serious unmet housing needs, even when the town surpasses, if it does, a 10% housing goal. So next slide. We are processing this housing plan through what's called housing production. Housing production was actually came as a subset of the Chapter 40B regulations. The intention of the state was to give towns greater local control over housing, such that if the town has an approved housing plan based on the state's requirements, and it produces 0.5% of its year-round housing stock, equivalent 11 units for Manchester, it gets what's called certified or a safe harbor for 1 year. If it produces 1% of its year-round housing stock, which would be about 22 units, then it gets a 2-year safe harbor provision where it can deny Chapter 40B applications without the developer's ability to appeal those conditions or that denial. And I think folks probably aware, given is that Chapter 40B, if get a comprehensive permit, can override local zoning. So components, these are the required components of the housing production plan per state regs. Have to have an executive summary, a comprehensive housing needs assessment, which I'm going to kind of give you the key points tonight on what we found. A section on challenges for creating affordable housing, as well as indicating measures that the town is considering, might consider to mitigate some of those challenges. And then annual housing production goals over 5 years, because these plans have a 5-year term. And then the housing strategies are meant to achieve the goals and to address the housing needs. And they have to include the following 5 categories of strategies. One being the modification of zoning districts or geographic areas to create affordable housing, identification of potential 40B sites, preferred characteristics of residential or mixed-use developments, municipally owned parcels for which the town will commit for affordable housing, and participation in regional collaborations addressing housing development. And as Sarah mentioned, one of the key aspects of the housing production plan is really going to highlight progress that has been made over the last few years since the last plan was produced, and And basically it's some of the strategies that were included there, as well as parts of the housing production goals that were met. There's a lot of information and it covers decades before, and we have some future projections. So just kind of in a nutshell, on major demographic and economic trends, there have been some recent population gains and with projected declines. The 2024 census identified 5,403 residents. And this is after a period of decline before that. The population projections suggest some declines to maybe, as low as 4,700 residents by 2040, which is close to the 1980 level. Losing younger residents and gaining older ones, which is projected to continue. Just to give you some comparison, between 1980 and 2024, the town as a whole lost 1% at a 1% population decline. Those under age 18 decreased by 23% during that period. And those 65 years or older increased by 141%. Really shows the aging of the population over those decades driven by baby boomers. Increase in family households. In 2010, 67% of all households were families. By 2024, increased to 75%. Very high median household income. These are all basically census information. To 2006, $206,369. And that's double the county level. Manchester has had one of the highest income levels in the state for quite some time, but this is very high in comparison to other communities. 65% of households had incomes of at least $150,000, and 9% of households were less than $35,000. Poverty declined to 3.9%. It was 5.2% for seniors. I should also mention that the town has become racially more diverse, where non-white residents were only 1% in 2000 and up to 10% by 2024. And next slide, Sarah.
10%?
Yeah.
Where are those people?
What's the definition of non-white, please?
Anything like Asian, African American, Native American. There are more and more people are claiming 2 or more races, so they might be white and Asian, white and African, that kind of thing.
This happens in more affluent communities where there's no longer like discrimination on housing, like where you can buy. So if you are affluent, you want to live in a nice place. I lived in Newton for a long time, and Newton has become quite racially diverse, as is Brookline, but economically, it's not particularly diverse anymore. It's losing that diversity for economically. And I think some of these numbers are showing the same trends are happening here.
We're still a gated community.
Well, I have to say, I mean, when I worked on the first plan back when, I could count the census data. Oh, there was one Korean family in 2000. Oops. By 2010, they're gone. It was almost down to those numbers of calling. So it's a good signal that the town has become more welcoming.
I have a question. I think seems like a contradiction. You're saying that we're losing younger residents and gaining older ones, but we increased family households. That seems counter.
Households, well, family households can include couples, but family households also, there are fewer children that are being had. Each family is having fewer children.
What's a family household? one child is,
No,
that's a
you're
family.
saying
Right.
Two people.
related,
Could be one.
related house, people who are related.
A couple is a family household.
They would be considered a family household.
What about one person?
They're considered a non-family. Seriously.
But they're occupying a housing unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
If they buy a house
Not a
unit,
family.
they would be
Family.
considered a non-family in the census.
So-
This is census data on the increase in,
Gaining-
so there's been a decrease in non-family households actually in Manchester.
You could say we're gaining older couples in a sense.
Yes.
That's the.
And families are having fewer children.
I have a question about the 9% of households earning 35,000. That's just the reported income, right? And we think we talked about this last time, so it doesn't take into effect, if you have older people, they may not be getting direct income, they may be getting
Dividend.
assets.
It only includes, it's a good point, it only includes income. It does not, it would include dividends, but it wouldn't include
But it's
financial
self-reported
assets.
in the census,
Earned
right?
income as opposed to passive income.
It
It says earned
should
income
include-
means you have a job.
No, it should include all sources of
It says it
income.
would be inclusive.
It doesn't include.
Oh, okay, fine. From a tax perspective, those are different lines.
Right. but
Yeah,
Okay,
no, this
but-
is all sources of income.
But the census is self-reported, right?
Yeah, but people get it, yeah, I mean,
But I guess my point is that older households or single people living in a home may have the ability to draw down savings or investments or IRAs that wouldn't count as income.
technically,
Well,
they
higher income.
should be identifying that as income. If they're
Yeah.
drawing down those
But I think most
funds.
people might not.
They might be borrowing against the assets in their.
That's
stock
right.
portfolio.
Yeah, or against their house.
I think to say earned income is not as good. You should say income.
It
Well,
doesn't say her.
It's
Oh, they earn
income from all sources of income is
Okay,
going to
fine.
be what's being
Self-reported.
discussed in the census.
Yeah,
Um,
so it could show a worse picture. And my point is there may be it may not be quite 9%. Who knows? All these numbers have a plus or minus of something.
Well,
this is also survey data.
Yeah, right.
But it's the best that we have.
that's a lot of people.
So next slide
I'm sorry, how many households are there?
in the whole town,
2,200.
2293.
very good.
No housing units is what's.
That's housing units.
That's not quite the same, but it gets close to it, but it's not
Okay.
quite the same.
Almost 200.
Yeah.
So next slide. This shows the change in income distribution from the 1999 census, 2010 census, and the 2024 census estimates, going from lower income ranges all the way up to, you see the spike, that's the 150,000 plus range. And that really dramatically shows what's happening. And you see all the other groupings.
Yeah.
Down, declines, net declines. And then, boom,
So they're 11 years apart and then 14 years apart in terms of the fall.
yeah. I mean, so, but,
I mean, that's not adjusted for.
But in
inflation.
No,
I mean, really,
Trying to, yeah.
I had the data from the other plans, so it seemed silly to have to go back and redo all of
Right.
that, you know.
Yeah, you've only got the data that you've
Yeah.
got, but they're more than 10 years apart, those bars.
It's still, come on, it's a huge increase. It's well beyond inflation. So next slide. Major housing trends. So there's been a loss of rental units. Loss of 130 rental units between 1980 and 2024. Well, that same period, there was a gain of 346 owner occupying units. And, the loss of rental units not alone is precipitating, but there's a 0% vacancy rate for rental units in town. the median single-family house price was $1,350 as of the $1,350,000. That's as of the end of 2025. And that's from all sales data from bankers and tradesmen. The median gross rent according to census was 1,811. However, that figure includes all the SHI units. So it doesn't really reflect real market conditions. In fact, the market is about, the market is really more at $3,000 for an apartment. So, yeah.
I actually I backed out, I took the details and I backed out the third of the, I can't remember exactly because I don't have it in front of me, but I backed out all of the ones that were that were in the lowest third. And then redid the denominator, and I think it came out to something like the average was something like 2,300 or 2,400 when you back out the.
What's the lowest third that you were counting?
Those that are paying the lowest third. I took your graph that had the lowest third and I said, let's pretend they pay zero. What's the average then? And it was like 2,300 or 2,400. So I think that's not what, if you put I think that's what people pay, or something under 3,000. And that's what people pay as opposed to what the market, when a housing unit comes up is vacant and turns over, then that's more of the market.
That's what we're talking about, is $3,000.
Yeah.
The number before that basically is the census figure for all rental units,
Right.
including rents that are subsidized. So yeah, I mean, it's not a reliable figure.
Yeah.
By any
It's
stretch of
deceiving.
imagination.
Is there a number of how many units have turned into Airbnbs that were year-round rentals?
That's probably a good one.
There is a number in the plan on occasional units, seasonal units, recreational units that are non-year-round units. So anything related to short-term rental would be included in that number, as opposed to the occupied units, which are year-round units per the census.
So everything's included in that number then?
The total number of housing units includes both occupied units and vacant units. A segment of the vacant units per the census are seasonal, occasional, or recreational units, and short-term rentals would be included in that figure. And in fact, when the state looks at the year-round housing total, which is like 22 something or other, they take the total housing units and they subtract out that number of seasonal, occasional, or recreational units to get at the dominated that we use for 10 years to get to the housing production figure and the SHI.
Those are, you say loss of rental units. I think what you're getting is what comprises rental units. That includes all Airbnbs and
So
everything.
occupied. These are occupied year-round rental.
Oh, so it doesn't include
No.
anything less than 12 months?
No, some of the loss of the occupied rental units probably dealt with, some of the changes to short-term rentals. Some probably were converted to owner-occupied units, either condominiums or single-family houses. A lot more two-family houses that were converted to single-family or converted to condominiums. So it's probably not just short-term rentals. It's a combination of changes.
Because I remember when you did your last plan, I was here for doing the master plan, and I had high hopes that we would be increasing the amount of.
Well, you are going to be increasing your rental units because of pending projects.
The 40B and maybe the ADU law might help.
ADU law might hopefully will help. We'll see how it goes. There's never going to be the waves that people were concerned about. But they do serve a real need for niche population. So we'll see how that goes, yeah.
So I wanted to just dig into, these rental units that we currently have, because the median gross rent is kind of a meaningless number. I'm interested to know, what are the rental units that are being rented at a rate which would make them qualified to be an SHI if somebody put a permanent deed restriction on the property? Can we
The
get that
rents, I can pull out a number for you. I mean, it's you mean the affordable units part of the,
The naturally affordable, how many naturally affordable units do we have in town that are not on the SHI?
well, we do have rents, a kind of a, by decade, how many rents were rented at certain, ranges
Sure.
of rents. That's in the plan. So we have a sense of the,
Okay.
and I think Sarah was doing some calculations on
If
that.
we have 24 units in town that are rented between $1,000 and $1,500 a month, you have that number.
Yeah, that would be in the housing needs assessment in the draft. There's I range, numbers of units by range over different decades to 2024.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have I mean, I don't know if you have it in this, but you have it in the plan. You have a giraffe about that in the.
Yes, yes. And we also have looked at listings and what market rents are too.
Because my guess is that we probably have enough affordable units to meet the state requirements.
It has to meet all those
I
requirements.
understand it does, but
Yeah.
but I'm just talking about from a financial standpoint, the rent being charged. I understand there's all sorts of, there's the, fair market marketing, there's the, deed restriction, all the rest of it, but just from an economic standpoint, somebody can rent an apartment in this town that is technically affordable according to the definition of Massachusetts.
I think
just
a lot-
financially.
A lot of those rents in the low ranges were in the housing authority. They were, rents where there was owner occupied property with a tenant they really want to keep. That's where a lot of affordable units are, when there's owner occupied property with a rental unit. People are pretty picky about the tenants and want to keep the good ones. It's probably beyond, there are some reasons for it beyond just, they are
We
affordable.
really
Plus,
get that.
we know that a lot of renters have seriously cost burden. So even if they're paying like $1,000 based on their income or whatever, they're still paying too much.
Right.
And that threshold, is 30%, they're paying no more than that. Let's see, what else were we? So we're talking about affordability gaps, the difference between, for example, what a median income earning household can afford, which is fairly high in Manchester because the median household income is really high. And that is $860,000 based on a number of assumptions, including that 30% affordability threshold. So it's a difference between the 1.35 million and the 860 for an affordability gap of almost $500,000. When you get down to those gap for those with at the AMI, 80% AMI limit for a household of three, you're talking about double. Not double, 835,500, also based on a number of assumptions.
I'm sorry, guys, I don't understand what this is.
Okay, so it's
That
the difference.
explains to me the whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraph down where it starts high affordability gaps.
It's the difference between what a median income earning household can afford to purchase, which is
Oh, to purchase. Oh,
to
thank you.
purchase or can afford to live, which is $860,000, and the median single family house price of 1.35. If you're looking what a household of three earning at the limit of 80% of AMI, the gap is over $830,000.
So that just includes housing purchase, that's not housing costs.
That would be.
In other words, you buy an 800 and whatever $1,000
We're
house.
talking about
It's not just costing you what the mortgage is, you have other housing
the
costs.
median house price compared to the median income, basically.
But practically speaking, people who are going to qualify or be appropriate for affordable housing are not gonna buy a house. Okay,
They could,
let's face facts here.
oh, not a market house.
Well, they're sure not gonna, but
No.
there are no non-market houses. for
Yeah, there
sale
are,
either.
there are condos at 12 Summer Street.
How many?
I think there are two or
Three.
three.
I think
that-
they're-
Good,
I think
three.
they're-
Well, they exist.
Three.
We need
You
more.
need more of them.
I don't think it's a measurable
But-
influence.
But it is possible. Habitat for Humanity's building 10 in Hamilton.
Yeah.
So if we were to do that, then, and Habitat does only home
You can
ownership.
have deed restricted condominiums.
And where are the sites, please?
No, I know, we'll get to that, but point being is it is a possibility,
Theoretically, a theoretical
Theoretical,
possibility.
right?
Not a realistic possibility.
So people that live in these houses, in housing, SHI housing, they've got a limit in terms of what their income is.
That's right.
Okay. They also have a limit on assets?
But let me just put it this
No
way,
limit on assets, just income?
there are limits on assets.
See, I'm looking for who's
Hold
renting
on.
and can go to buy,
Okay.
and you gotta start somewhere.
Renting, there is kind of a cap on how much income somebody can make over time. They're annually monitored. For home ownership, income is only at initial occupancy. You don't track or monitor any changes in income over time. So it's a little different. There are financial asset limits that really make it almost impossible for a long-term homeowner to qualify
In
for
long-term
home ownership.
renter.
No,
No.
homeowner. Say a homeowner wants to downsize and
Yeah.
move into
Oh, I know,
an SHI unit.
they're
Their
gonna,
financial assets,
they can't do
they
that.
can't do it
$2
because their
million
equity is
in
just
equity.
too much.
I don't think they're looking for that, they're downsizing. They're looking for,
We
an
talk with
apartment.
council on aging, they're looking to downsize.
yeah,
People are
no, but they're not looking to downsize to SHI. They wanna downsize to an apartment anywhere. Well, preferably something they can buy or condo. That's a challenge. They're not looking to get into the SHI business. They sell their house, they got $1 million.
And they can't qualify, but income wise, they might qualify for an SHI.
Yeah, I agree.
unit.
I
That's,
agree.
that's the
I agree,
difference,
but
yeah,
then-
but not financial with
No.
assets, no.
and I think they would wanna buy something anyway, otherwise they have tax implications.
That, true enough, true
Can I
enough.
just ask if you rent and if you qualify for an SHI unit and then your income goes up, do you have to leave?
It has to go up a lot. It has to go up to the equivalent of 140% of area median income. And then basically, if there's not within the development, a market unit that they can move into, yeah, they have to go. It's rare though, I gotta say, because once they get up to that income level, they want to go anyway. To a market situation and so it's not a very prevalent kind of thing.
It's not.
There is a cap.
Okay, thank you. All right. Shall I move
And then substantial cost burdens. So 74% of those with incomes at or below 80% of AMI are spending more than 30% of the income on housing costs. And 39%, almost 40% are spending more than half their income on housing costs. And the next slide, this is just the distribution of assessed values for fiscal year 20, where that line has a little earlier curve, and fiscal year 26, where you see that big blip. And that's at the, over $1 million category.
And that's not cost adjusted.
That's 2026.
2026 dollars, they're both in 2026 dollars.
The 2020 is in 2020 dollars.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, but given the extremes, even if you adjusted it, it would go up not a huge amount to make the disparities that are visible, really be kind of much less profound.
So what happened?
What happened?
Housing
It's
prices-
called Economics 101,
Man.
less pollution, less production, greater demand, prices go up, and the value of property goes up. The assessed values have gone up. And then I think we're going pretty much down almost to the last slide. So we distilled information on, you know, various indicators of need. If you review the draft, you'll see that by various target populations, et cetera. And we maintained that rental housing is still a top priority for families and seniors. It enables with financing from the state, ability to focus on some of the more vulnerable residents in town. And if you look at those with cost burdens, we're talking about those with incomes of less than 50% of their median income.
How does, how does this, the SHI process achieve a focus on most vulnerable Manchester residents if you have to open them to a lottery? That's one of the pieces that I never
You still
understand.
have to qualify income wise. And if you have a project, there are developments that are 100% affordable or somewhat less, and they have income tiers of 30% or below AMI, 50% below AMI, 60% at AMI. You've got to do lotteries within those income ranges.
But my question is not that. It's, let's say, an individual qualifies.
Yeah.
And currently lives in Manchester. One of the rationales for all this is always we can meet the needs of those current Manchester residents who are burdened on their housing costs. And so if there's a limited supply of new housing units, 115, we meet our SHI goals, and there's 300 people who qualify, 200 of them are from outside of Manchester. Our Manchester residents aren't assured.
70% of the units can be set aside for those who have a connection to the community and that they live or work in the community.
Okay, that's helpful.
Or their kids go to school. in the
Because that's
community.
always one of
That's
the
70%, yes.
And I always
That-
wondered
yeah,
about that.
yeah.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
It's interesting.
And they get a double dip because they get in a separate pool to begin with, and then they're all pooled, you know, to 70%. And then they're also included in the open pool with everybody, so they have a chance to even go beyond 70%.
Okay, that's very helpful to know.
It's interesting, at the Manchester Housing Authority, I just joined
I
this
saw.
morning, okay?
I was.
We have some vacancies, and so we run a lottery. And we had, I think, like 4 units are vacant. And we have 19,000 people.
Yeah.
Who have signed up.
Yeah.
Who want to move to Manchester.
Yeah.
Now, this is statewide, so this isn't just people from Beverly who want to come, but it's like, there's a lot of people who would like to.
They're all pretty.
But-
Provide 70% of these 4 units to just the people from Manchester.
Whoa,
No.
but
Not yet.
if it's a local resident, they get priority.
How much?
If they are an emergency situation, if their house is burned down, or victim of domestic violence, or if they're a resident, in some cases a veteran, they get priority over everybody else.
When people start this process, though, don't they pick 3 communities?
Pick 3 communities? What do you mean?
Sign up for?
Yeah, to sign up for when.
Oh, they can pick more than 3, I think. I mean, yeah, I don't think I'm not certain, I don't think there's a limit. And then the state has a huge centralized list. And then when they have vacancies, the individual housing authorities poll folks, but then they have to go back and purge folks who've been on that list for a long time till they finally get somebody that works. And then there's always that when units turn over, they have to be fixed because people have been there probably for a long time. And there's whole maintenance of renovating the units, which also takes time. So there are often delays when units turn over for, reasonable.
True.
Yeah.
Well,
So that is a really important segment of this the housing stock in Manchester, and ways to kind of keep it viable, pretty important.
the housing authority is heavily weighted toward occupants who are from Manchester.
Oh, yeah.
Well over half, excuse me,
People don't-
19,000 people.
Right.
Most of those don't have any chance of ever coming in here unless they're from here, because so many of these people.
Yeah.
Live here.
Well,
And they stay there. I mean,
That's 19,000. It's gonna be a fairly narrow strainer that's gonna be going on
You're
there.
right.
So just quickly, we'll just diversify the housing stocks, 0% vacancy rate, which I mentioned before, loss of rental units. Almost all state subsidies are for rentals. With the Affordable Homes Act that was passed a couple of years ago, there are some additional resources for homeownership, but we'll see how that really shakes out. All 40B units count as part of the SHI, but this plan recognizes that that homeownership still should be a priority on the town's housing agenda. It still needs to be addressed to help diversify increasingly aged population. There are very few subsidized ownership units in town. And looking for downsizing and starter housing. And then aging population, and given the percentage of those with special needs, integrate handicapped accessibility and supportive services into new development. That's kind of it in a nutshell. This next slide is next steps. We're gonna get input from you tonight on what your thoughts are regarding where the town should be prioritizing its efforts related to housing over the next 5 years. I'll draft the next sections of the plan related to challenges for producing housing, production goals, and the housing strategies. And then we'll be back at you for another kind of public meeting to present the full draft and then get approval from the planning board and the select board before we submit the plan to the state.
That was great.
Well, thank you for your comments. It really does enrich what we're trying to do here, and the purpose of it all.
So
Could I-
last night at the Affordable Housing Trust meeting, we talked about capital A affordable versus small A affordable. And given that there are a number of 40B projects floating around out there, and any one of those could put us over the SHI safe harbor, shouldn't we be focusing on the small A affordable housing instead of the SHI targets?
I mean, at that point, it's up to you. We clearly know that once those units are completed, you're still going to have basically the same kind of unmet housing needs in town. You're going to want to have some income qualification. You'll probably still want to have them deed writer, it's deed writers on them. You probably still, because of fair housing laws, want to do some affirmative marketing. I mean, a lot of the things that are there are probably still going to be some considerations, but you guys can figure that out and how you want to proceed. Yep.
Can I make just a little bit of a statement, because I hope it could fit into your document in the end, because I think there are some people I know from focusing on this now for many years, actually, that sort of say, so what? It would be nice to have a diversity of housing types. It would be nice to have truly affordable housing, but a lot of people are kind of happy. Their house is worth a lot of money. Fundamentally, a lot of people are like, wow, I live in this town and I've got a little gold mine here. At some point I'll sell it and I'll have a chunk of money. And there's a lot of people that aren't really caring enough, in my opinion, or not engaged in this. And I think the lack of housing options, the missing middle, the small A affordable, you're by saying no to this, or I don't really care, part of what you're doing is denying people access to jobs. I've talked to a lot of leaders on housing regionally lately, and it affects things that can seem trite, but they're actually really big. Commuting time is huge. Anybody's got to commute more than an hour to or from work. It stresses families. It's not a small statement to say. It costs more money for daycare. It stresses family structures. Urban sprawl is affected by this. I think environmentalists should join in on this effort on housing, because that's the next step in protecting land, is to reduce the pressures on development of land. Which sort of boils down to, we need some multifamily housing. More housing concentrated on smaller land, chunks of land. I've heard that many teachers don't even apply for jobs in some of the regional school systems, including ours, because there's no viable housing reasonably close. I've heard that,
That's gonna work.
I don't know what's gonna,
I want to take some notes so that I can,
Wait,
you know.
turn it sideways.
well,
Just bending.
I was just gonna add that,
Hold it, you can write.
Oh, no, no.
In Gloucester,
I'm good.
No.
in Gloucester, I've heard that some people aren't renewing their contracts at places like Varian after a year or two because of housing and commuting time. We've all seen people commuting out to Cape Ann. The traffic jams to get to North Shore Mall leaving in the afternoon, or because people are coming here, there's the sources of employment here. The impacts of this are not trite, they're profound, and people should be engaged in this more than they are. That's my point.
Good point. I agree.
They're very good points. Hold on 1 second. I took out a marker and now I
Oh,
can't.
it's on the floor.
Oh,
It fell out.
there it is. Sorry.
It fell out. I was worried you were gonna trip over it, actually.
We're gonna have to cover it all again.
Then you have to show that.
I get it.
It's
I have
amazing.
more, but,
Say.
okay.
Now the traffic.
The impact-
Well, it makes sense to look at like infill redevelopment instead of, you know, the whole sprawl thing that we mentioned and.
Well, I really think environmentalists, there's a lot of people that care about, we tied up 111 acres last year or whatever. They should be actively involved in trying to help solve the housing problem, because it will reduce pressure on land. And if we say, oh, we tied up land in Manchester, well, what does that do to Essex or Raleigh? The pressures go over there. They're not gonna be very happy with this, with that attitude. So it should be more of a regional effort, and people should understand the impacts of saying no.
You know, that, to your point, one of the things that has changed in the last 5 years is we've permitted cell signaling to create what? 400, 500 jobs? Where are those people gonna live?
Good question. So why are we building a one-story building on a downtown eminently accessible site where we could build 20 housing units on top of it? But the town doesn't want to do
I've been
that.
talking about that for
You
years.
don't know about
No,
that.
No, I tried to work on a
Okay,
whole other.
so
thing
you'd
here.
be in favor. Why are we building a one-story building?
We should have a 4 flat-story building back here. We should have new housing. in it.
Okay, go for it, baby.
Well,
I'm for it, but I mean,
I had a meeting with all the players. We
Okay,
had-
why don't we,
It's a
let's,
lot.
go back
It's too
to
big a
our,
nut.
our purpose here of, input on the plan and, you know, we can talk about how people should be involved, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the goals of the housing production.
Well, Jody made a point about, that's worth fleshing out, about what's the true affordable housing? Is there organic affordable housing in town?
I think they call it naturally or. small
Yeah,
way, yeah.
but I could be wrong. It might have changed since last time we looked at it, but it's really hard to get a single unit here and a single unit there on the count. You need to put a deed restriction on it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
this
you
is
not
the
only
pro-
need to
this is the problem I have.
Restrict your property,
We
but
all
they don't
want
want
to
to
have
see incremental.
small infill development.
Yep.
The state does not
Right.
Right.
allow that. And I say they don't allow it, they allow it, but they do not facilitate that. In fact, it is impossible.
Well,
If
it's
I
not-
own 7
well, actually,
apartments,
we
if
know.
I own
We're-
7
we speak,
apartments,
we
Karen,
know
Yeah.
what we.
and I am willing to put a deed restriction on my 7 apartments, how am I ever gonna afford a marketing plan? I can't.
Costs $10,000 a year.
We talked a little bit about that at the Housing Trust meeting. There are other models of communities that have come together and are. in
Great
fact-
idea, but it
So
doesn't
why
happen.
doesn't it happen?
Well, it's happening in other places.
Well,
It's an
why not here?
actual- Well, we're gonna include
Well,
these models
you're
in the
doing the plan. Put it on the plan.
So that.
Okay, so,
We need to have an Eastern Massachusetts, some kind of commission that does this for small infill development, because it's impossible.
so
On the
maybe the
Cape side.
solution for the plan is that we are willing to work with other communities or the state
Yes.
to make the rules for small infill units at
Well-
least possible.
Yes, exactly, feasible or.
Feasible.
Chris
I mean,
only mentioned this a while ago. Is there an ongoing effort to think of affordable housing at more regionally than putting 10% burden on each individual town. Is that going anywhere?
No,
That's a different problem, different, that may be a different opportunity to think about it.
There are instances on Cape Cod.
On Cape Cod, I heard about
Yeah,
that.
where the towns are supporting projects and other specific.
But
the
only
state
one town
made
has the
accommodation.
SHI credit, you said.
That's right. However, their idea is that, well, we're talking about little a too, their idea is that, you know, residents of their towns could potentially benefit. And a lot of these projects were special needs. They were veterans, they were autistic adults,
Yeah,
where,
that
you
community's
know,
interesting.
that's right. So it was a little bit more specific target population.
It's sort of a subset of what I just said, which is the state's rules.
Yeah.
Are so narrow that they don't, and complicated, that they are almost prohibitive for small, small infill or regional cooperative.
You know,
Incentives are in the wrong place.
there are in some places, what's called a ready renters list, where you go through a affirmative marketing plan, you implement, you go through a lottery, you rank the applicants, and when units become available, as they turn over, you can get one of those units.
And
And
how
Who does
do
it?
those units become qualified? That's the question. It's not the availability of tenants. I have tenants in Cambridge and I work with, and Brighton, where I work with Maloney, who runs the housing
Yeah.
authority, and he's got loads of tenants. All we need to do, but we're qualified because we've got a 130 unit apartment building. Now, if I've got 7 units in Manchester, I can't get my units qualified because Ed Augustus, who's the Secretary of Housing,
no longer,
has he resigned?
yeah.
Thank God. I don't care who they got. He was awful. Okay,
Well,
because you
what's the
can't,
threshold? Why is 7 units not
Okay,
enough?
let's keep talking.
because you can't afford to market them.
Just briefly, though, I want to just tell you what some other communities are doing.
Okay.
One
Right,
is
this
this
is in our
Regional
plan.
Housing Services Office.
Okay.
There's
good.
one in Metro West, there's one in North Suburban, there's one
Regional
in,
housing
you know, the
service.
Hudson area, I think there's one in the South Shore. And basically, it's an office that's kind of manned by consultants who really know this stuff.
Great.
And communities basically avail themselves to various services for a fee.
Right.
And they do a lot of this kind of work. The other model is the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission has a regional housing coordinator. So there are about 7 or 8 towns that have signed on. And they, they provide fees to support, part of, this person, and it's like a circuit rider. She goes from community to community based on the needs that pop up and provide the kind of assistance
And she can make units qualified.
she could deal with. And I think this idea of a ready renters list, makes sense. So potentially, given the fact they'd already affirmatively marketed and, applications come in, you get on the
But another
list.
group does
And then, so the list is ready. So if a unit became available,
Yeah, so what's
can't
the-
be occupied, obviously.
So what's the organization that does that?
Well, this is a model. I'll include it.
It's a model.
It's Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission, which is a regional housing authority.
Is this similar?
So MAPC could do that.
Maybe on a sub-regional level.
Going back to the plan,
Really?
maybe one of the recommendations or solutions is that we are willing to work with other communities to cooperatively have a circuit rider who helps gets these things,
Market.
on the
Yeah, they do the
SHI.
lottery, they.
I
do
mean,
all
even
the-
if what Gar is saying, I think,
Pay
if I'm just gonna add something to what he said, is it's difficult, the marketing plan. Even if the Affordable Housing Trust were to pay some sort of delta between the future market value and your current market value, the paperwork burden is so,
$10,000.
is so, and then just the hassle and the challenge.
Oh, yeah.
Every time you have
Oh,
an
yes.
opening.
No, it is expensive, and so.
So isn't there a model?
Do this work, so I know.
Wasn't there a solution, a model solution that the Cape, didn't they have some personnel that worked with multiple towns so that?
Is that what she just
That's
said?
what she said.
Yeah, we were talking about, they had ready buyers lists, ready homeowner. ready
No, but this was on the
tenants
Cape, which had like a unique solution that the state,
I think that can be.
begrudgingly
instructive.
approved.
We need to-
Well, I'll provide some examples and then come up with
I
something.
mean, it's like we are willing to work.
I
with-
got your language here.
Yeah.
Willing
Yeah,
to work,
that's-
yes.
So others,
Anxious to.
yeah, I wanna make sure we keep this.
Compelled.
This, make sure that she gets what she needs to get this plan
Yes.
done, so.
I mean, it's great to have a
Just-
plan, but we've had a plan since
I know.
2000, what is it, like 6 years ago, or whenever it was. And we haven't done
Been
anything,
able to do anything.
we haven't achieved anything with the plan.
That's not true.
Well, it is, we don't have any more affordable units.
Yeah, we do. We have 29, actually.
No, because they're not on the SHI. I helped buy those,
I know you
Nine
did.
units.
Yes, I know.
and they're not on the SHI, because they've been running poor Mark around Robin Hood's barn.
Well, now, every
Tells
time,
Why they can't get
There's
them
been some good
qualified.
Zoning done, which helps kind of create a
It
good.
doesn't have anything to do with zoning.
Well,
Those were all zoned.
No, no,
We
no,
bought
no,
that.
Downtown zoning, the senior zoning, the ADU rezoning.
I was on the.
You said what happened in the last 10.
So,
years.
okay,
Stop, that's
so-
happening.
We can go,
So can I just follow up on that?
Yes.
And Chris's point, you know, we've got that, you've got your list of things we've achieved. And somehow nuanced, it would be helpful to say that the town, private donors made a property SHI ready. I don't know what the right word is. And that the state burden not prohibited, has made it
We paid-
slow.
We put in all the money necessary to buy it.
6 years later, we still don't have one unit.
Okay,
But the
Powder
point
House
being
Lane.
that the town, I mean, it's a pretty big demonstration. And people put private money in to have a
Yeah.
building or.
I didn't get any tax credits, I didn't get any benefits, I just,
Because the problem is you can't, it's hard to get incremental units.
Yeah, right, but so to Gary's.
you get
earlier
them, but
point-
it's gonna take a while.
But to Gary's earlier point that people should care, I think it's a pretty big evidence that at least people were willing to
yeah,
put dollars toward that. And even if we don't have them on the SHI yet, as they
They
turn
will.
over, they
They
will.
will.
Well, no, we have
Is-
no hope that they'll.
I know, but
Oh, they'll go on.
but anyway, my,
6 years that we don't have one?
that's because they have to
Strange
turn
to you?
over.
They have to turn on.
They have,
no, they've turned over many.
no, no.
You can have that.
Let Mark
They weren't turned over when-
Let's
Okay.
not Mark.
Okay.
let's keep going.
Can I ask a new question, a new subject, which we haven't touched on?
We haven't touched on a lot.
We mentioned capital A affordable and small A affordable, but what about? I don't think any of us really believe that the state's definition of affordable housing, the 80% of the median, is actually particularly affordable. It's kind of market rate. I think it seems to me that way anyhow.
The rents can be high, yeah.
How do we address, how do you address truly affordable? It would be nice to have truly affordable units.
You get.
How do you get there?
You get a developer, you get a site, developer gets a site who's really mission driven. And there is financing available to include housing at different income tiers. You can do it rental, you can do it home ownership. There are good models on having different income tiers for home ownership, 80%, and then actually some higher for those who still parse out. Or
60%.
most importantly, for rentals, you can get multiple layers of state financing. You can make all the units affordable, and you can have some at or below 30% of area median income, have some at or below 50, and have some at or below 60% of area median
And it
income.
seems to me, one way to get there, besides relying on money from the state, is to provide zoning perks. To up zone, allow greater density.
Do you do
so
a
that's-
friendly 40B?
So I think that's sort of what I'm getting at,
Yeah,
but do it divisively, where you have a plan in mind, you have a formula like you said, a program of what you'd like to see the rents be. Some could be market rate, as long as some are lower than this 80% AMI.
So that's what the Manchester Housing Authority plan that worked with the Affordable Housing Trust, that's what that was. And it's still the plan, no, I'm talking about the
The redevelopment,
Newport Park.
Yeah,
the
right.
redevelopment.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
redevelopment,
Yeah, that's exactly what they would be doing.
yeah, we could.
Let me mention the local initiative program, which is also the Friendly 40B program. That's a situation where the developer has a project where the town has expressed, meets its kind of priority preferences. It's a good project and goes to the select board, and the select board and the developer agree on the basic terms and conditions of that development. And then they kind of can do it, you get a go-ahead, so they apply jointly to the state to get the go-ahead to submit a comprehensive permit to the ZBA. And that kind of permitting, particularly when there's a great project that involves waivers of zoning, the LIP project really, the process really does work.
Then we've done one.
We haven't been.
Yeah, I mean,
able to
it
get a developer-
works.
Yeah, it worked great with
Yeah.
Summer Street.
And that's a great project.
Which street?
10 to 12 Summer
The
Street.
first and last one.
Laughing Knoll. Laughing Knoll.
First and last one we've ever did.
And it's a great project.
It's a great project.
That was in
So
eighteen.
can I, just, reality test, you know, it's the project you described, the hypothetical
Yeah.
project is not the project that is arriving at our doorstep in October. In fact, quite the opposite.
Right,
So if
Right.
we want a variety of housing prices, the first line of that developer, for whatever reason, is I am a luxury developer.
yeah, that's,
And so that's what he believes, or they believe it can make the money or justify the cost of the land or whatever. I mean, it's not
Taking
they're in it for the
300
business.
truckloads off the top of the mountain.
Right, so, those kind of things, those are when you have. So I guess the response is we need to.
you need to get to, the 10%, or you need to do production goals. So you're not susceptible to these projects that you would go on, basically.
Or you punish the developer through offering to up zone to some extent. If in exchange you get units limited in size, units that are 60 or 50% AMI. And, you potentially
Well, you're doing
consider even
some of
more
that with
development.
the downtown
and getting
zoning.
something back.
Right, but
Yes.
go back to Jody's
Some of that's
problem,
happening.
is that the developers are the first one we have didn't go above 4 units because the burden of that 5th unit.
No one's gonna.
They went to the inclusionary
The
zoning.
administrative burden of that 5th unit is so high.
So you do the LIP, you get, the biggest issues is getting site control. Developers trying to find site control. And the Housing Trust really knows that the hard way. But site control and density, and you need some density in order to make affordable housing economically feasible, and also to make some of the subsidies work. And that's the thing, identifying a site that could potentially accommodate some units. It's hard, but then you can reach out to developers who really know how to deal with these projects.
And what's the smallest project that you've seen work this way that you were just describing? How many units?
Oh, you know what, you're talking about it, I've 28 units
28.
minimum. Typically, it works better for like 35, 40.
Okay. Okay, so we need to find a piece of land that's how big?
Well, it depends on how
Dense.
dense and where it's located.
It doesn't have to be a single.
Right, yeah.
Out the window.
I mean,
It's out there.
35 units that's a pretty big chunk of land.
It doesn't have to be a single.
This is amazing. We're like Lilliput.
Smallest. we're the
You know,
smallest
did you ever
town in the state
read
or-
Gulliver's Travels? This is like Lilliput.
I get that.
It doesn't have to be a single site. It can be multiple sites, like the housing
Could
authority,
be.
With one developer.
with
so
one
they get
developer
benefit.
doing all, sure.
The Summer Street project is a good model, as well, and that was like 20 some units. It was 30 some?
28th.
I guess we get those.
Similar to the last.
Yeah.
Other,
Thank you, John, for coming.
Thank you very much.
It's very
Appreciate it.
educational. Yeah.
other actions that you'd like to see focused on in the.
To get the state to change some of these regulations, is it
Oh, come
worthwhile
on.
to talk? Well, no, this is a serious question. Is it worthwhile to talk to some of our legislators?
We have.
You know, you can go ahead and do that. I got it, I was talking to Mark about this. About a dozen years ago, 40B was on the ballot statewide. And there were the pro 40B camp, there was the anti 40B camp. 40B was voted in favor by a huge margin. You know, and all the stuff was talked about then. I mean, all the little pieces about 40B were discussed during that campaign for a significant period of time, a lot of money raised. You know, I think it doesn't hurt. I think it helps the state to hear what real concerns are and kind of, you know, sometimes you can catch their ear.
I think
But
we're saying
it's
it's hard to do
moving-
it incrementally. Is that one of the statements we're making here? It's hard.
I just think it's a tough,
40B was an animal of the residential development industry. Let's face facts. It got passed because, and I could name the 5 guys who were big apartment developers who got that thing through. It didn't have anything to do with the public good this was the way we can force this right down the necks
I have to say
a
though,
whole bunch of little towns. And it worked, and it's been incredibly effective.
yeah.
And it's very hard to stand in the way of that. I think that's true.
And the other
And I
thing
think
is,
we should.
and the other thing is the cities were big in favor of it because they were saying, we shouldn't be the only ones providing multifamily rental housing. There has to be a way where towns, in all different sizes communities can make some kind of, contribution to the state's multifamily rental stock. And that was a huge piece.
Right. But what we're asking for is not to negate 40B.
No.
We're asking
You are
for
to be
the Department of
Yeah.
Livable Communities, or whatever they call themselves, to recognize that Manchester's a little bit different than Framingham, please. And let us do affordable development at the scale that we can live with. That's all. It's not a big ask, actually. And the development community, frankly, couldn't care less. Equity Residential, I don't know, you're not gonna use their lobbyists to fight that. No, they got better things to
No,
do.
Well, there's a little bit more to it. I wouldn't say they
Okay,
couldn't.
what else? Talk
But I once again open it up to any other actions that we should include in
So we
the
have to-
housing plan.
Again, one of the actions we have to put in the plan is potential town sites to be investigated.
Yes.
Yeah,
And so, Mark, you've given her a list.
he's gonna give me some language. on
Yeah,
that.
language around the obvious
Yeah.
various sites. of them.
Can we add our condominium that we just bought?
What condominium, what? Oh, this is your private thing.
No,
the
the town
senior
paid
center.
$1 million for some land out here.
Oh,
Senior
town,
Donations help.
oh, the community center, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Part of the 48B law though was because, and this has gotten worse and worse. California is a great example. Towns and cities and states have all gotten more regulatory. It takes 2 years to get permits in California. And the 40B was a way to break through that. There's a bit of rationality behind that. It's not completely selfish. But Abundant Housing is an organization in the state whose funding has tripled in the last 2 years. And they have a law pending in the legislature, which is to stop requiring 2/3 votes at town meetings for every darn zoning law, because people get there and they don't know anything about the zoning laws being proposed. It's a burden on the planning board to try to get any little tiny incremental change
Anything
there.
related to housing though is simple majority.
not anything.
Not any.
It is very broad related to housing production.
Our town council would disagree with you on that.
So is there anything that we
No,
want
but
in
to
this
get
housing
our
plan
tax-
that's relevant to what Gary's
Well,
talking about in terms of
I
zoning
mean,
changes?
Well, among the things that we've done are the downtown zoning, the MBTA and the
Yeah.
ADUs. So our downtown rezone, which did allow higher density and lower setbacks, was deemed to require 2/3 by our town council. We
But
thought,
would it pass?
anyway, we passed.
Would it pass?
It's a huge burden you have to develop.
That's still, I think,
If something doesn't pass and if it does.
Anyway, so it was fine.
Yeah, we should have the
Let's
same.
keep them, we need to be, we've already done that.
We've done those things. So,
Is there anything else that we need to do?
yeah, what are the other strategies that you're contemplating that we're gonna, that you would recommend that we put in to this plan?
well, years ago, you had, I remember there was a notice of funding availability that the Housing Trust had, and you basically said, we have a pot of money, developers come in, owners come in, and, let's talk, and if it meets kind of our funding guidelines, let's talk, and we'll potentially fund you. What happened with that?
We
Nothing.
got not a single application from
The,
anybody,
the Affordable Housing Trust is sitting on how much, 1.4 million?
being seven.
Oh my God, 1.7 million, they haven't been able to spend it, Karen.
Tried to buy a piece of land.
They
Were
tried
there
two things.
restrictions that
It's not
all of a
unique.
sudden just,
The problem was, we were creating 1 or 2 units, and it goes back to Gar's problem, which was the administrative cost of an owner trying to put a unit on the SHI made the subsidy that we were willing to pay unworkable.
So one of the things we put in the plan is get cooperation from the Department of Housing.
we can, we can keep,
Yeah.
drumming.
But I could tell you,
Yeah, so,
You know.
so let me just point
Never
out that when we had the phone call with the senator and Justice and other people from
Yeah.
EOHLC, it was an hour call, 50 minutes was talking about
This,
down the street here on Elm Street, right? And trying to get that on the SHI.
Yeah.
Yeah, on Powder House. 50 minutes of the conversation. And one thing they made perfectly clear, I mean, the conversation just went round and round because people just didn't want to accept but that these regulations were put in place years ago.
1969.
They have tried to modify them years ago, and it opens up such a huge can of worms, it just doesn't get modified. So they are at this point just not willing to look at revising the regulations, because once if they open that can of worms, who knows what's gonna happen, and nothing may ever
I
happen.
would interpret it that they are in the employ of the RHA, which is called the Rental Housing Association, which is a group of developers
Mhm.
who are running housing production
but it is
in
what,
the Commonwealth.
what Mark's saying.
But what I'm saying, it
It's the
is,
system.
yeah.
I understand what you heard, but somebody needs, and I don't know if Maura Healy has the guts to do it.
Mhm.
Somebody needs to go in and, shake the blanket a little bit and upset things
But allow
because.
it to occur
I mean-
incrementally, it's not
Let's Mark
counter to
finish,
this whole.
let's let Mark
I
finish.
mean, what I wanted to discuss was
Hundred-
more like policy changes and other things that they can do, or the state can consider doing through additional legislation to make other things easier to develop.
Mhm.
But we didn't really get to any of that,
But
and
maybe
so,
there's another meeting.
yeah, maybe on that, perhaps I'll like pull out, see if I have any notes of
Yeah.
what I wanted to talk about, but so that's kind of where it's at right now. We have to work within what we have right now, and that's kind of unfortunately the reality of it.
The other question, okay, so I have another question
Mhm.
that's a little bit on a different tack, and that is, we had this forum, I think many of us were there yesterday, where, people said, what do they like about Manchester? And it was all about scale and community and I think, people are in this town we hear it with zoning all the time about if they want scale, they want things to be small scale.
Mhm.
And I think, there is receptivity to the private developer 40B. But scale is really the sort of catch-all for what people are going to object to. I mean, yes, some people will say we shouldn't have any and all those things, but I think when you get the giant one that's gonna give us how many units? 200 units, it's like on the, total, on the FHI, 285 in the development, so therefore we're, over our SHI requirement we've met it for a long time, but, so how does this plan reflect the what we've heard over time about the community wanting developments that sort of fit within the community? Now, that flies in the face of your comment about density, increased density. And I'm not naive to think that 115 units are gonna come in single family homes. Or even 4-family homes, the density has to increase. But it seems to me there's a balance. And how does this housing protection plan help us to articulate that balance?
Well, one of the things is looking at different housing types that could address specific needs. Currently, might work through friendly 40B, currently isn't allowed during zoning, but could be, if you had sites, could be infill housing, missing middle. Like, what's very popular are like these pocket neighborhoods, these cottage clusters, bungalow housing around a green space. And I gotta say, designs of these small cottages around these green spaces, the models are wonderful.
Yeah.
And you can fit them in a neighborhood. I think Manchester, there are some really good options for
how do you fit them
doing
in that
more townhouses.
20-acre site
You don't need 20 acres.
No, but we have a 20-acre site that the developer is, how do we use this plan to transition that proposal to
Can I
something that's-
rephrase that
Yeah.
a little bit? Which is, how should the town be engaging with the owner and developer of this property to address the demographic needs? That we're
Well, you should
facing?
send them the plan for one thing, and just say you'd like to talk to him about, the plan and how you might be able to work with him on a project that would be mutually advantageous.
I mean, so the thing is if, if the town just said no to Jefferson Apartments, said, we're not doing it, we're not applying for, a MassWorks grant, we're not taking on the burden of a $2 million or multi-million-dollar MassWorks grant, we have other things for us. We don't think it's a particularly good plan, it's too many units, it's not gonna help Manchester residents, and just put it at that. Then they go away, you sit down with Gordon College, and you say, we would like to work with you on a master plan for your property.
Yeah.
That does meet our needs. Now, Gordon College may say, go away, we don't want to discuss this. Other groups were willing to purchase that and they didn't want to engage with them. So wasn't for housing, but they may not want to engage with the town, but that is one way of doing it. I mean, I've done a really big mess.
That's helpful, so maybe we
Is this the side of the 40B that you're talking about, the 20 acres?
40B.
I have a question about that 40B. So say Jefferson doesn't go away and then we end up with another unfriendly 40B in our face.
But maybe they'd be willing to talk with us.
I think they are willing to talk.
But I think you say friendly or unfriendly, you're still gonna get, whether it's friendly and you file a LIP application or not, and they proceed on their own. I mean, what are they gonna do that's different? Just try and add more units to it, maybe?
To me, that the Gordon Woods project is, people are talking about it as a certain number of units and a certain percentage of them are quote unquote capital A affordable housing units, correct? Tim, I'll restate what I said earlier. this could be an opportunity where if the town proposed some form of greater density allowance in exchange for a program, a list of the types of units we'd like to see, then you start like small units not bigger than a certain size. And let them do maybe some more units, but when maybe some of the units are at 60% AMI.
That's basically
You
what
could-
Mark was just saying. is that
Well,
you-
I haven't heard anybody articulate what I'm saying right now yet. I'm saying you develop a more elaborate program of unit types and giving them a zoning perk so that it's economically viable for them. And then you get a more complicated and richer development. It may have more units in it, but how else are you gonna get there?
You
But
do.
it sounds like
You
that
do a friendly
project,
40B based on a plan that's mutually beneficial to the college and to the
Yeah,
town.
I'm talking about a friendly
But you
40B,
don't have to do rezoning necessarily
No,
to
we
do
don't.
that.
but it's more involved than what's currently on it, slightly more involved, I
Well,
think.
no, it's
than what's
only,
currently on it.
it's only the very basic 40B.
Right.
25% of the units have to be, meet the
Right,
SHI
I understand that.
requirements.
I'm
Yes.
saying it would be nice if this conversation, that project got more elaborate.
So let me ask a second.
You're shaking your head.
That's,
you're talking about a bigger project,
let me ask another question.
Right.
Sorry, you have a question first?
so that project would be
And that
bigger
is, so
than what
let's
we're talking about
assume-
now.
You may wave our magic wand
Right.
and
Just-
a 40B happens that is, luxury, 75% luxury units, however many there are gonna be, we get, and 25% big A affordable. And now our median rent in town goes from 1,800 or whatever it actually is when you take out the subsidized units. It's gonna go up. It's gonna go, I guarantee you, it's gonna go up. We have a lot of units, I think, that are in that, friendly renter department,
It will.
yeah.
You're
So
absolutely right.
you're gonna come
We're
back
talking
here in
about-
5 years
Yeah.
and you're gonna say, we're still have people who are housing cost burdened. We still have, our median rents have gone from 1,800 to 2,800 because the luxury developer who introduced themselves as a luxury developer is gonna be charging $4,000. So my question is, what does our plan look like then?
The rent you care about is the market rent and how to make that in new projects going forward, how to lower the market rent for those who can't afford it.
Yeah.
Whatever income
think it
tiers and
matters
how
what
to
our
use
median
splice.
is.
The median doesn't really matter. It's just, it's the market.
Sure.
And how you can adjust the market to serve a wider range of housing needs.
How does a 40B that gets us check plus in the state's requirements help us actually meet that exact need?
It's that example I gave you about multiple income tiers where 100% of the units are actually affordable.
Right, but if we get
You need sites.
unfriendly, yeah, but we're limited. I mean,
Jumping to 100%.
I looked at every single site in this town.
I think she's
That's
talking about.
10 acres or more, or 10 acres.
She's talking about a friendly, there are examples of friendly 40Bs in the state that have been built. And that had
All over
multiple,
the
there
place.
weren't just a question of 25% affordable, there was other types of units in there.
You could,
But you have to create wealth for the developer to get that.
no, you need, there are developers even in this region whose mission is to build that kind of housing. The question is coming up with sites that are going to work, that are large enough for them to get site control and not be bid up where they can't afford it. And to make it feasible for them. Even in 40.
You have to subsidize the site or something. Okay.
Oh, we're talking about multiple layers of subsidies. The state has, different programs that provide financing to get to those lower income ranges.
So
And it's usually a mission-driven developer who know how to do this. They have great track records for the
Which is
state
not
and
this developer, right?
financing.
I think,
Or even some for-profit developers
But
who
like-
really know how to do this.
so I think what's driving Jefferson is that the owner of the property, Gordon College, is requiring a certain amount of money for the
They
land.
want money.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the college wants the money,
yeah.
and Jefferson is saying the only way we can do that is a bunch of luxury housing using.
That's
a
what they do.
40B.
That's what they do.
So we have to figure out how to
Right.
make it more palatable for Gordon College to lower the selling price.
What's the price differential, or what selling price would?
I have to do a very complicated analysis.
No, one thing.
Maybe we could, maybe that money could be raised, and we lower the land cost for Jefferson in exchange
For
for.
a 40B that looks like the kind of 40B that we.
Yeah,
So
it's
change the
possible.
pro forma, change the program for the project and the pro forma.
That, I mean, that would be a win-win, right? If we could bring to bear,
College do it.
well,
They need
they're-
money.
They,
You're not gonna give them more money than these guys are.
Oh, yeah.
no, we buy down the,
Land costs.
the land costs.
Or the developer could, what if he built more units, but we got the units we wanted to see? That's another approach.
You know, though,
Instead of
as
throwing
a
money.
developer, they'd have to bring in somebody who knows how to do this.
Yeah,
You know, this kind of project that I'm talking about, multiple layers and state financing, that's a specialized
different
developer.
developer.
It's a different developer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Point, that's. they're
That's
not-
a really
yeah.
good point.
Jefferson's a pretty sophisticated group. I've worked with them. I actually have financed a lot of their apartments. They started in Dallas.
Oh,
Really?
They
Problem.
probably think of it.
Yeah, I'm a spy from the, but they're remarkably sophisticated.
well,
which
they
is-
bring somebody in.
but they don't make
They
the money
probably have
doing
somebody
it.
in Dallas. who-
You're talking about.
Okay, but no, what's going on here, though?
All right, Karen, what else do we need to do tonight? I think we had a
I
very
just,
good
I
discussion.
think we just wanted people to be able to kind of
I've learned a lot.
provide their insights
we just
into where we
persuade
should
you?
be and.
Now, my feeling is, as an overall, I think the prior housing production plans have been superbly written, but they just weren't achievable. I think we need to write housing production plan that's feasible or
Well,
achievable.
we learned a lot in the last 5 years too.
So I would,
You
I
know,
would
you have
amend
to
it.
identify sites.
Okay, Chris,
You have
what's
to
the
have
amendment?
11
I would
units per
amend Bar's
year.
point. I think actually the problem with the previous production places, nobody paid attention to them. And I think
You're right.
I think now this one, we should, make a big deal about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Publicize it.
All right,
I see nobody online, so that's good. I hadn't been ignoring anybody that was out. Thank you. Karen has a long drive back. Are you going back tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. I want to thank you for all of your great analysis and,
thank you for all your
insightful comments, and I think we all learned a lot tonight. And with that, we're gonna.
I'm gonna start writing.
Okay, thank you.